I wanted to do another video about self-defense because my first video on self-defense got taken down because of racial intimidation or some nonsense like that. Fine line between free speech and hate speech, blah, 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 blah. But what I want to point out, with the impending mooting of the Second Amendment, they are going to definitely be limiting certain people's access to firearms, which in some ways may not necessarily be a bad thing. But I do want to cover the importance of being able to defend oneself. There are two areas that people must pay attention to in order to defend themselves. The first is physical culture, being strong enough and healthy enough to defend yourself. That is weightlifting, running, stretching. These things are muy importante. Okay? Then we go into the actual systems of fighting. Now, I would recommend people focus almost entirely on traditional martial arts such as Shotokan karate, taekwondo, tang soo do, and these forms of martial arts, and stay away from things such as how can I put this? Stay away from things like MMA, Krav Maga, and some of these more elaborate forms of self-defense. Now, Krav Maga has actually come a pretty long way since the late 90s and early 2000s. In the early 2000s, one of my favorite stories, it's actually not one of my favorite stories, it's one of my karate instructor's favorite stories, is he brought in a Krav Maga guy because we wanted to steal their gun disarms. And it was funny because this dude was showing us these different Krav Maga techniques, and I kept reversing the technique and giving the guy a run for his money. Now me, at the time I didn't even have a black belt. I'm just pretty good with my hands, if you know what I mean. And my karate instructor to this day tells people about this guy. And another more interesting one is my karate instructor likes to say it. He went to some martial arts convention or something, and this ninja was trying to show him how to do ninja stuff with the air and the wind and the sun and the moon and all this nonsense. And I think his exact terms were he ninja'd him right out the door. So the one thing with martial arts is it has to be practical. Karate, taekwondo, tang soo do, hapkido, judo, jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu, not Brazilian jiu-jitsu. These are very practical means of self-defense. Within these systems of self-defense, there are even more practical means of defense, which are not usually mentioned. And these things include the attacking of target areas, such as the eyes, the ears, temples, things like that. But what people don't understand is you have to be prepared to do damage to your attacker. Now, I'm not promoting violence. Please understand that. There is no way I am promoting that people attack people. And I'm actually going to admit this. Most people watching this video probably are not going to have the ability to do what is necessary to defend themselves. A lot of people get very squeamish. I, on the other hand, am a little bit crazy. So I never had a problem with being squeamish. But there are certain things that one must be prepared to do. If you're going to attack somebody that's attacking you, it's gonna be kind of gross. There's certain things that you're going to do that aren't going to be very pleasant to hear the other person's reaction or see what happens in the aftermath of what you have done to another person. It's just that simple. Now, I'm lucky enough that I can say this. I've gotten good enough. Now, I'm 35 now. I've actually avoided any real nasty physical altercations my whole adult life. I had the last actual good physical altercation I got into was in my late teens, 17 years old at a school thing. Since I've been 18, 19, 20 till now, I've been able to keep myself out of any dangerous, or how can I put this, altercations that would result in grievous bodily harm or severe bodily harm to people, because I use my brain and I avoid fights and I avoid certain areas of town and I avoid certain places and I avoid drinking in public and I avoid other things that might lead to bad things happening to to me or to somebody else. However, that's not always possible. No matter how careful you are, sometimes bad things happen. And with people not having access to firearms the way they were, and even if they did have access to firearms, what people need to understand about firearms, a lot of people that own firearms either don't know how to use the thing properly or they don't have time to react. A self-defense situation does not necessarily give you the ability to pull a firearm on somebody or any other type of weapon. I also recommend people, like what I always like to do is I like to screw around with improvised weapons. I used to like to play around with pipes, sticks, things like that. There's a weapon called a kubotan in Japanese karate, and it's also used in self-defense. It's like a pen almost, and a pen or a pencil will do great. And it's used to attack pressure points, the throat, the eyes, things of that nature. I would highly recommend people start screwing around with improvised weapons, because the thing is, you're always surrounded by things that can be used as weapons to defend yourself. You just have to be willing to use them. Now again, please note, this video is not to promote violence. I'm trying to promote self-defense. I would highly recommend people join a martial arts school, a traditional martial arts school, and I urge people never, if they can help it, never to practice martial arts until they are comfortable with what they have learned from a martial arts practitioner that knows what they're doing. That being said, I'm going to put resources in the description, and that's about it.